All right, today we have an awesome webinar. As you can see, we have Stefan Judas from Contentful with us today. We'll be going through a ton of actually different live demos. We'll be showing you the content model behind Gatsby.js. You can see how powerful Contentful is as a backend, and we'll show you obviously a little bit of Gatsby and Gatsby Cloud on the front end. So we have jam-packed. We're going to run through kind of quick slides, and then we'll get right to the demo. Housekeeping, we're definitely going to record this. So if you have to pop out, sorry about the loading screen. If you have to pop out, don't worry, you'll get an email with this whole recording in the next like 48 hours. If you do have questions, please just place it in the Q&A tab. It's a lot easier for us to track in the Q&A tab rather than chat, although we can talk to each other in chat. And questions, if they're right on cue, we'll try to get to them. If not, we'll probably backload and answer them at the end. All right. So today we're going to be talking about Gatsby, and Gatsby is the front end for the headless web. We'll be talking a lot about CMSs and headless. First, want to talk a little bit about why headless, right? There's a couple of different reasons and benefits for headless web. First one we'll talk about is really the performance. The speed and responsiveness of a Gatsby site, of that static decoupled site, is just incredible. You'll see it today on deck. A couple mouse clicks, you'll feel it. The security also that we bring in the decoupled nature is just going to have a lot less attack vector open. Your surface area for getting hacked is drastically lowered. Scalability, flexibility, and productivity are going to round it out. So scalability, you'll see today, we can scale a static site to thousands of pages and get millions of hits on that without having to worry about our servers coming down. No more Reddit hug of death or big Super Bowl ad, Cyber Monday just passed, all of that. All those worries that you have on the DevOps side, they really go out the door when you have a headless solution. Flexibility. We'll talk a little bit about flexibility today, but mostly we'll be focused on Contentful. But when you have a headless solution, your possibilities are limitless. You're no longer boxed into the features and profile of that specific, maybe monolithic platform. You now kind of have the entire library of React. You have all the Gatsby community, and you're able to endlessly build whatever you need. If you need a map component, if you need a calculator component, any of those things, you're not relying on like maybe a paid for third-party plugin on like an old platform. You're actually now being able to develop that yourself with JavaScript. And lastly, productivity. No one loves using old tools that they're fenced into because of maybe like a client's needs. This really gives your development team this separate tooling that they can love, the workflow that they're already using, and it marries with the marketer, which we'll talk about today. That content creator, we no longer have to make that concession. We have Contentful, the fantastic backend for the content creator, and then we have our Gatsby on the development side as their favorite front end. And this is our main theme today. Gatsby makes it simple for developers and marketers to build amazing websites. And it's the and in between that makes it so powerful. So content authors can write in their favorite CMS of choice. Here it's Contentful. You can see that it has a WYSIWYG. It's easy to use. We'll go through a little content modeling to see how powerful it can be. But then developers source that content in React components and templates. So we're taking that exact content model over there on the left. We're writing it in code in a little templating. You can call it like a pseudo templating language, but it makes it really easy to see the title description on the left, and then you'll see the title and description here in the middle, and then the output, right? So on the front end, Gatsby then compiles that, serves it up in your browser as an ultra fast static or server-side rendered site now. And that is, you can see the writing here. So get started with Gatsby and Contentful. It's the same title here. When we make changes in Contentful, we don't have to make those changes in the code every time. It's just going to automatically pop up. And again, this is a really simple example. We'll go through a couple simple examples at the end, and then we'll go through a little bit more like complicated content models that, again, Gatsby.js uses throughout our website. All right, so real quick, let's take a look at the Gatsby platform and kind of the different parts that we'll be talking about today with Contentful as the backend. We really have four main parts here we want to point out. The content layer itself. So this is really the incredibly powerful GraphQL layer It's decoupled out of the rest of the Gatsby's kind of framework guts. The content layer is a great way to source content, normalize it, and then persist it in the static website. So you can bring content from really anywhere, an Excel sheet, a Google sheet, a JSON file, a YAML, or Contentful, Drupal, WordPress, whatever CMS you'd like to use. All that can be brought into the content layer and normalized and persisted. That's what we'll talk about a little bit today. We'll show a little bit of the back end, I think, in the graphical, and you can kind of see just how Gatsby thinks about using data. Below that is the framework itself, right? So these are the actual components, the templating, the styles, even some of the theming that we built into the Gatsby framework that we have when we had shadow themes. All of this is in the framework itself. We have prefetching, image optimization, code splitting. These are all the great things that we just have out of the box that you would expect of a ultra-fast meta framework on the web today. And then lastly, well, two more things. We have cloud at the below. We'll talk about it. We'll go through it. Gatsby Cloud is a way for you to build, preview, and now deploy and host your website, your Gatsby project in one unified place. So we automatically connect to CMS of choice. We'll source that data. We'll bring in our awesome incremental builds and give you ultra fast builds with Gatsby Cloud, and then deploy it to our edge network that's hosted on Fastly. And lastly, here on the right is just kind of our plugin architecture in general. We have thousands of plugins that are used for things like sourcing data, connecting to analytics tools, to doing small development tasks like either transforming text or like working with styled components, maybe a little bit easier. All of those things are small little plugins that you don't have to write code for yourself. You can just install it quickly into the Gatsby framework and you'll have that functionality out of the box. We'll talk a little bit about that, about sourcing plugins, especially when it comes to Contentful. This is a great way to look at it and how everything is broken apart. We have the code here on our left with Gatsby framework, and then that content management system is sitting above it in this content layer. So this content layer is the thing that will be rebuilt every time we make a change to our website in the CMS. And it's what makes Gatsby so powerful as a static site. We really don't go through the full build that a static site would normally incur while still benefiting greatly from the static site generation. But we don't have to rebuild the whole thing. We'll just rebuild that content layer. And then lastly, the plugins, where you can use anything like Google Analytics, Segment, another CMS, CSVs. You deal all of that with the Gatsby plugin architecture. All right, we're going to bleed now into Contentful. And the last part of that, again, is just this content layer is what connects the Gatsby front end to the Contentful backend. And we look at Contentful backend like any other kind of data source. Again, we normalize that data, we have it in GraphQL, but it's all about the experience for the content creator, I think, that makes Contentful so powerful. So Stefano, I will leave it over to you now, and you can go through Contentful.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so in case you haven't heard of Contentful or haven't used Contentful, so basically Contentful we're part of this headless ecosystem that Dan just mentioned. And what that basically means is, one forward, is that we are a content management system running in the cloud that you don't have to host yourself. Can you go one forward then?
Yep.
So basically Contentful is a content platform that runs in the cloud, and we are a set of APIs that are for you ready to use out there. And then because you want to have a beautiful editing experience for the marketers or for the content creators, we have a few apps sitting on top of our APIs. So what you see there on the right side are two web interfaces. So the standard web app and something that we call Compose that you usually interact with to kind of edit and manage and kind of do your content. And what you can then do in return, you can use these APIs that we provide, which I will show you in a moment, to kind of build your Gatsby subs or sites or whatever you want to build. Because at the end of the day, everything that is stored in Contentful is JSON, and you can port it wherever you want at the end of the day. But you might now ask the question, okay, but how does it actually work when my content management system runs in the cloud, right? So how can I make it myself? How can I customize it? How can I make my editors happy? Depending on the tech stack and the content management that we're providing. So can you pass forward one? So Contentful is pretty extensible and customizable. So first of all, what I want to tell you is we offer these interfaces that you can use to manage and edit your data, but then you can also go to our marketplace, because Contentful's UIs are pretty much extensible, and you can install plugins depending on what you're trying to do. So as we're here now, Dan and I are talking about Gatsby quite a little bit. So you can also head over there, install the Gatsby plugin, and kind of get preview information and trigger builds from right within Contentful. And what this all is based on top of is what we call an app framework. So whenever you use Contentful and you have the need for custom fields, custom preview buttons, maybe you need a completely different UI because you're doing something super duper fancy that has very particular content needs, then you can use the app framework to do so. And additionally to that, we provide a design system so that everything looks good, and various open source tools that also are included in our starters and things. So how do you build for Contentful using our APIs? So I just want to give you a brief overview of what we do here. So now we have to click a few times because I built in transitions. Click. So first one is, the first and main API is what we call the CDA. That is a highly scalable and cached content delivery API. This is usually, and it is RESTful. This is usually what you want to use, well, if you're hitting Black Friday or this Reddit hug of death, which I heard today for the first time this term. Then if we forward one, we have another API, which is what we call the CPA. So this allows you to preview data that is not published yet. Contentful data has usually two states. It is draft or edited and published. But very often you want to give content people kind of a button so that they can preview what is going on before they hit publish. So this is what you can use the CPA for. Then our API, our interfaces are on top of the CMA. So whenever you use our UIs and apps to kind of edit and create content, it is basically sitting on top of the content management API. And this is a read and write API that you can also, for example, use to automate certain content operations. Or maybe you want to write scripts that update 50,000 entries one after another. You usually don't want to do that by hand. This is where the CMA comes into play. And then moving forward, one more. Then for asset handling, right? You know, assets are the most heavy thing out there, and images. We allow you to resize and transform images to WebP and AVIF. Now that's the new cool kid in town. And all these kind of APIs, so CDA, CPA, and CMA are RESTful, but we also offer a GraphQL layer. And for Gatsby, we're also providing a sync API, which allows you to fetch all the data and receive Delta updates. So you can build this data layer, for example, for Gatsby sites. So moving forward, one of the things that I do enjoy the most about Contentful is pretty much that it enforces to structure your content. So I'm dealing with content management for quite a little bit, and usually it was always posts and pages in one way or another. But these kind of data structures are usually not scalable when you have to port things to different projects. So what you see there is what we call content models. So in Contentful, you can set up a content model, which is pretty much just a content definition about something to a certain extent, and you can click that together in just a few minutes. So what you see there is that there's a post that includes an author in the body, and an author links to an author, and an author then has pets. And what I just want to tell you here is that this is entirely up to you to define your content structures, and you can do that in just a couple of minutes. And in the second row there, you see that, well, if you want to give your marketers and landing page people something to really become creative and build their own stuff, you can start kind of assembling all these different content pieces so that things become editable for whatever your content needs are. Every content type then has several field definitions, right? It goes from rich text, which is sort of JSON-based. What you see is what you get. Text fields, number fields, dates, location, and the important pieces, references. So you can create a content entry of one type, connected to another one, connected to another one. You're entirely in charge of building up your content structures depending on your project. But at the end of the day, it's all JSON, which then means you can port it to wherever you want. And one thing that we really want to show today here is that if your content is structured properly, click, then it becomes super nice to build with Gatsby and React. Because if your content is structured, for example, in post, author, and animal structures, you can connect that to React components. And this then really makes the entire thing fly, because you connect one thing to another thing to another thing. And the Gatsby application automatically knows what to render, because it knows, well, I'm dealing with an animal. let's display it like that. And like this, you can really end up with this kind of set of building blocks that people can just connect together and then render it out. And this is where content becomes really, really scalable. So I showed you all the APIs. You don't have to worry about these because, as Dan mentioned, everything is a plugin when it comes to data in Gatsby. So if you want to bring in Contentful data, click. We offer a Gatsby stored Contentful plugin. That is pretty much all you need to get data from Contentful into Gatsby. And as we are big fans at Contentful of Gatsby itself, I just want to tell you, well, first of all, click contentful.com is actually also a Gatsby site. So we think that you folks over there do pretty nice stuff. So, and now
reciprocated as we are a Contentful shop.
Well, nice handshake here, Dan. So if you want to learn things about content management, structured contents, and all these kind of things before Dan jumps into a fancy demo of what we just all told you, click. So all developer resources, if you want to reach out, my team, I work in Contentful's developer relations team. The quickest way is really to go to contentful.com/developers, or if you want to chat with me or other Contentful folks or other Contentful developers, we have an open Slack organization, which is available at contentful.com/Slack. And with that, I think we have 15 minutes in. It's time for demo time. What do you think, Dan?
Let's do it. All right, so I'm going to be doing most of this live. Questions? Oh, we're done with that. So bear with me. We're going to walk through two things. We're going to head on over to Gatsby Cloud. We're going to log in, and I'm going to start from the beginning. We're going to launch the Gatsby Starter Contentful blog. So it's just a starter in our own onboarding experience on Gatsby. It's a template. It'll get you set up really quickly with a space. We can kind of work through just how easy it is to use some of the features in Gatsby Cloud. Then we'll take on a look over to actually some of the code, some of the content model, and then even we'll build out a web page on Gatsby.js using a pretty, not pretty complex, but a much more complex, I think, setup than we have on the blog itself. All right, so we're gonna head on over to Gatsby.js. We're gonna give ourselves a login. I have this workspace here. It's called Gatsby Labs Demo. I will actually, let's do the whole thing. Start from a template. All right, so we're gonna hook up. I have all of this open in another tab, so I might flop over, but we can walk through this. So we're gonna start blog with Contentful. We'll call it Contentful webinar. Oops. Contentful webinar, and then we'll just do live since my other one is already called that. We're going to create that repository. So my GitHub is already connected. You just need to have some type of Git repository in the cloud to connect to. Now, our second portion is connect your CMS provider. So Gatsby Cloud just automatically knows through the config file that it built in the repository that, hey, Contentful is in there in the code. Let's give you an auto connect. So here we're going to click connect. And I am going to authorize this. I'm already logged into Contentful, but it's going to give me a whole new space in Contentful that I can then edit. So we'll go there live. All right, now we're connected. Start my site. So this is going to set up a project. It's probably going to take, I don't know, 1 minute. We'll go back over and I'll show you. But we have this other one already that I've been working on. So we'll go to Contentful webinar right here. All right, so you can see my last build, remove path. It built in 1:59, deployed in 4 seconds. This is Contentful webinar landing page. So if we open this, we're now on our website. So we have the Contentful Gatsby starter here. When we go back to the cloud, you'll see that we have nice links to all the things that basically build this website. So we have a link to our GitHub repository where we store the code. We have a link to our Contentful space, so we can go in there and make edits. And all of this is kind of your dashboard for your website itself. So real quick, we'll kind of open both of those and we'll go in, we'll make some changes and we can kind of see what a preview is like. So first, I will open this GitHub, awesome. Here's our repository. So this is where you'll download this to your local development machine. You can make edits we'll pass that up. So I already have it open. We'll kind of open it in a second, but that's there. Next thing we'll open is our Contentful space. Again, this is the back end. This is the content that is powering our website right here. If you go here, this is the UI that you'll land on. We'll go through a little bit quickly here what the content model and content is, just so we're familiar. When we jump back over, we'll understand. I think it's easier if we open the content first. So this panel is all the content entries that we have, different content types. You'll see the content type here is blog post. This is really simple, kind of straightforward, a single type of content type that's kind of built on itself. So when we click this here, you'll see we have changes. We have content that we can add in. So we have the title of the post, we have the slug, the URL that we're going to automate, a description, which you'll see on the website itself, and then the content. So let's do a little side by side. We can kind of see. I'm going to exit out of that. All right, sweet. If we go back here. All right, we can see this one. All right, so what does it say? Automate with Gatsby, and why does it say automate with webhooks? Because, like Stefan talked about before, this is not published yet, right? This is only draft content. Right here, contentfulwebinar.gatsby.io. This is our production URL right now. So let's say in this example, I have automate with Gatsby, and maybe we'll say Gatsby and Contentful, and I'm a marketer, and I really want to see what this looks like. Maybe it breaks like a line, or it's going to look funky, or maybe I just want to send it to a friend and have some feedback. It would be awesome if we had a way to preview it, and we do with Gatsby Cloud. So Gatsby Cloud, when we made that connection before in our onboarding, it installed the Gatsby Cloud preview button here. So when we click this preview, we'll open a preview server that will automatically get rebuilt with an incremental build, and we'll be able to see this content fairly quickly and in a live way. So I'm going to click this open preview right now. We're going to open this screen. It's going to look very similar. We're going to polish your site. So we're doing all the magic in the back there. And again, we're going to be shown the actual unpublished content, the draft content in here. So now it says automate with Gatsby. Sorry, I should say automate with Contentful and Gatsby. See. Oh, that was messed up, but it's all right. If we open the, that was like exactly what the button I didn't want to click. All right, so we'll reload that. And then we'll also publish it. So we'll see two live things happen. And what's going on now is actually, if you have Gatsby Cloud open, you can see the builds happening live. All right, so here we go. That worked out. 7 seconds it took to update. This is on our production site. So our production site that publish is already done. And if you go over here to CMS preview, you'll see that our preview server updated in 3 seconds. And that's what we're seeing here. So if you go here and you make a change again, so let's just go to automate with Contentful. That's going to auto save. We'll open preview. It's going to keep opening in tab, so I'll have to open it. We go back here. We'll see it get built live, which is amazing. And it's easier to see side by side than 3 screens. Sorry. And perfect. So 9 seconds, totally like doable amount of time. If you're coming from the marketing side, this still really feels like a, I guess, native CMS process, right? Like
feels
exactly, like you're making changes, you're clicking a preview button or clicking publish, and you're seeing those changes nearly immediately. You're not waiting for like this 6-minute full build that a static site has been known for. And again, all this, it still gives you that like crazy fast static site. So even though we just did that incremental build, this whole site is still rendered statically. As you see, when I click around, it's just freaky fast, which is awesome. That's what we want to see. Automate with Contentful. Again, we're on this preview server. This preview server, I can share to anyone in the world. They can see it. If you have a password, you can also lock this down with one of our plans, so you can actually protect some of this preview stuff if you don't want it slipping out into the wild. We'll publish this automate with Contentful. So again, if I go here to this production server, I see what we published before. It says automate with Gatsby and Contentful. We'll wait like literally the 10 seconds, or we can go back over here and look at our builds. So I'm gonna guess it's probably already done. Yep, built in 6 seconds. It's deploying right now. Once that's deployed, let's say it's gonna take 1 or 2 more seconds. We will reload. Oh, it's gonna trip up, of course, because that's what happens on a live demo. Whoops, let's reload this. All right, awesome. It must have been the UI over there. Automate with Contentful, automate with Contentful. So it's fixed on production. Again, we're making content changes from that CMS. It's happening in that brief amount of time. So let's really talk about quickly, like where that data was, I guess. So we'll open GraphQL, which is the GraphQL kind of playground that Gatsby auto generates in the local host. So a quick way to do that is to go grab your GitHub information, get that repo from GitHub, download it on your local machine. I've already done that, so I've kind of cheated and I'm a little bit in front of you guys, but I also have a couple things open, so to do that. All right, sweet. So here's our local code. So downloaded that, opened it up in VS. We'll go through a little bit of this more on actually Gatsby.js. It's a little bit more complex scenario, but it's pretty cool to look at. But what happens is if you launch it, so I guess this is running. Shouldn't have done that because that just risked all my life. npm install already done. So now I'm going to do npm run dev. We're going to start Gatsby develop, and this is going to give us that blog on our local machine. You can see us sourcing.
This is where the data fetching happens, right?
Exactly. I was just going to say, you can actually see it right here. All that data fetching, it's going out to Contentful. You're looking for all the entries. If you were connected to different sources, for instance, honestly, the Gatsby.js, we have a ton of different sourcing for all of the information on our own website. It'll go through like Airtable, it'll go through Job Invite, it'll just go through all those data sources while you're doing your build. All right, so this build is done. Localhost, let's check it out. All right, sweet. So everything's working, looks good, very nice and clean. One of the cool things, like I said, is the GraphQL. So it is localhost, whatever you have, ____ GraphQL. And this is basically like the data laboratory and where everything is stored on that GraphQL layer. So over here on the left is the Explorer. The Explorer is going to allow us to look through all files, everything that we look at as data right here. So you can see all Contentful assets, all Contentful blog posts. All of these here are right next to files, directories, images, all those things. If we were hooked up to WordPress, this would be right here as well. So all of these things are in one place. And this is what really allows you to grab data from that data layer and put it into your React page. You're going to build out your component. Here's an example of the all Contentful page. So this is what we were looking at before. Each one of these nodes has the SEO description, the page URL, the page name, and the page ID. And it's going to automatically output this snippet. You'll take that snippet and just place it right into your React code. So you can see for an example, nope, that's the wrong example. Yeah, this example. Yeah, so if you went here, you'll see here, right? These are, this is a GraphQL query. We're querying titles, slug, publish date, tags. Once that's in there, all of it can be just applied in your React code. So the same place where it says like layout, the layout location, that's all gonna map really cleanly through your components. We'll also talk a little bit about templating in the next one too. All right, so real quickly, we're gonna go back to cloud. One of the great things, yeah. Sure.
How does it work with, so Noman Ahmed from the chat asked, how does it work with subsequent GraphQL or Contentful builds, right? Probably the first build takes a little bit longer, and then every content update is faster. How does it work from a content perspective? What is cached and how does it work?
For sure. So this is actually a great example. So these are the 4 builds that we have here on the website. So you can see the timestamp. I started this blog an hour ago, just so we had something open. This is the first build that we ever did. So Gatsby Cloud grabbed the data from Contentful, built out its GraphQL layer, built everything else out in the framework, and it took 41 seconds long, right? So that was like a full non-cache build. The next thing I did was I actually made another change to the code, and I made that change and removed path. I did one change. I pushed it. Gatsby Cloud automatically grabbed it and built it for me. Again, that cold build was non-cached. It took 1 minute and 59 seconds. Once that was there, everything is then cached. If I had done another code change, it would have taken around another minute, another 2 minutes for this small site to build. But what we did was we changed the content. And now once that build is up here, the content and the data layer doesn't need to be fully rebuilt. So you can see it went from taking 2 minutes to now taking 7 seconds. And that's because all we did was we looked through that GraphQL kind of manifesto, saw the one change in the CMS layer, and just swapped that out on the edge. So we don't have to go through a full rebuild. It goes through an incremental cloud build. You can see here it's marked by this little badge, cloud. It's not present on these other ones. So those are those incremental cloud builds. And you can expect them to take under a minute, right? Like in the seconds. These are small changes that our marketing is making at the content layer that we don't want to go through full rebuild. We want to make it as quick as possible. So again, 6 seconds here. If we did another cold build, like here, clear cache and build main, again, it's probably going to take 1 minute to 2 minutes.
That makes sense. And code changes really invalidate everything, right? Because you probably cannot figure out what's going on, because there could be very drastic change in when there's a code change coming in. But with content changes, you know what is connected to what, and that's it.
Exactly, because of like the data-driven approach of Contentful with Gatsby components and such, like you can only make changes that you've already kind of coded for and fenced around. So it's great that in that respect, there's no need to like go through a full rebuild. But for code changes, you do. The one thing is the build is still optimized and cached on the cloud. So one thing that we've seen teams adopt is like almost a cloud native approach to your workflow, where you can do all of your builds in the cloud on PR branches, and that will take some kind of bite out of your build, right? Because we're going to optimize some of the caching that we can do on the code side. We're going to parallelize as many requests as possible in the build. So you'll see a faster kind of cloud or cold build in the cloud than you will on your local machine. So it's definitely something to take into account when you're doing that.
Cool.
Another really
Thanks
cool
for explaining.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for asking that. And I can actually show the PR branch in 1 second. One of the great things though about static sites and having kind of this decoupled nature is the atomic builds. So what does atomic builds mean? That basically means everything we change and everything we do is also going to go through somewhat of a versioning, and we're going to be able to apply any of those changes at any point. So if something breaks in production or something we don't like actually gets built and it gets deployed, we can actually just click a button here, publish, and we'll auto revert back to that state that was there before. So again, the change between this is literally the content change. So we can go in Contentful and make a change, and that would be a new build, or we can just go here and drastically, like if we have an emergency, we'll just click publish, we'll automatically publish this, and boom, we'll now kind of be rolled back. We'll see it here.
I love this feature. It's not only about rollbacks, but sometimes I'm just like, how does this site look like 6 months ago? And you don't have to publish it, right? You just have still your atomic URL. It's like, yeah, this is how it looked like. Oh, fancy. I love that.
I do it all the time. I feel like it used to like back in the day, you go to archive.org, right? And like search the thing and then like go on the calendar, pick your website from like 2 years ago, and then hope that like the CSS isn't gone and it's all loaded. I do the same thing like 2 months ago. I just go here, I filter down and I grab that build. I take a snapshot of it and I say, hey, like it used to look like this. Now it looks like that. It's great for testing. And it's super easy to do because each time, each build makes its own URL. So this is the published content. You can see here, it's marked by purple. it says published here. If I go to Contentful webinar, the URL, yeah, if I go here, I'm going to get what everyone else gets, right? That published content. But let's say we want to take a look. I can go to visit build on this link right here, and I'm going to get this really atomic, unique URL that is just specific to this build. So this is going to show changes that aren't on the other one. So let's see if we do actually have change. We might not, because we did the same thing. But these two would look different in theory if, again, our changes that we made in the CMS were different. We can go back here and actually look at this one, this first one. Shouldn't say Contentful, it should say webhooks. Exactly, that's a great example. So this is just always persistent, and we can see the difference between automate with webhooks and the production build today that says automate with Contentful. So great call out on that, thank you.
I think that this shows one of the concepts. There was also a question like, where is the data coming from in a Gatsby application, right? I think this shows pretty clearly that Gatsby builds and fetches the content and assets from Contentful at build time, but that's in your build and it is deployed somewhere.
Correct. It's totally a part of that static asset that we made at the build time. You can use a Gatsby function to do things with data in real time, kind of during runtime. You can also use server-side rendering now with Gatsby 4, but still on the static site, all that data is basically in your browser, right? It's ready to go. You can actually query it in the GraphQL layer as a static prop, but every single piece of content is all compiled and kind of, well, it's pre-rendered, but it's all there, which is really, it's the difference in the speed, right? Is the fact that like when you click a link in a Gatsby site, it's not asking the server where to go or the new information, right? It's only asking basically the browser because it's all preloaded. So when I click hello world, it's like instantly there because there's no need to go ask the server for that information. So the data, the code, everything is pre-compiled at build time. All right, so we have here a super simple example. Again, this is a blog. You can only kind of write in this WYSIWYG. So you can see here, I have this rich text editor. I'm kind of constrained to just kind of paragraphs. The image, if I wanted to move that, I can't really do it with this content model. So let's stroll on over to the Gatsby.js. And actually what my idea was, we can make some of this page with our sample demo. So that'll probably be it. All right. Oh, sweet. Hopefully, yeah, it does kind of stink. I have to do it live, so hopefully everything works. We have other people working, obviously, in the company on the website live, but we'll hopefully get through this.
YOLO.
So, yeah, exactly, YOLO. What I want to talk about first, I think, Stefan, is the content model, right? The content model, we walk through kind of in pictures, but it can be really simple, straightforward, or like you talked about with referencing, you can build this really kind of complex pattern that references multiple types and lets you build a much more dynamic type of setup. So what's the easiest way to show? Let's do content model first. All right, so here are the content models that make up our page. So if you go to Gatsby.js, I'm gonna take cloud for an example, but we'll go through. This page is made with the same exact content model that we'll be showing you today. And this page has a couple different kind of sections, right? It's got the text on the left, content on the right. This is very common in all marketing sites, but we can flip its orientation. It's also got this hero that is kind of centered. It's got this description, it's got this title, it's got these buttons. If you go down here, it's got this other type of grid that's a little different than above. Lastly, like we have this footer that closes it out. Those things are all very different. And when you think about the coming from the blog, it's like, okay, how the heck do I build this? And how do I build this without having to go back to my developer over and over and ask for kind of to customize this or do it in a code-driven way? With this content model that we have, we've really built kind of this foundation to dynamically do these cool things. So there's just a couple of different pieces here that we'll be using today. The first one, and I'll walk through kind of each one so everyone actually sees what it's like. The first one is self-service landing page. This is the foundation for what we're going to do. So this is the page itself with the page name, the URL slug, These things are used, I'll talk about a little bit, content type, persona. They're just kind of tagging mechanisms for us. The meta title, meta description, whether the site is going to be indexed or not, the social media, the graph images, the OG. So think about this as like the utility page for the actual page we're going to make. Lastly, it's the actual content, right? And the content's not going to live on this entry page. It's going to live on all the other entry pages that we talked about. But this content section is where we start linking things. So we have this list here. Let's open side by side. And I'm actually going to make this page here. All right, so we're going to add a new self-service landing page. You can see here, this is the same exact content model that I just showed you. It's got all of the same entries, except you can change it, or you can change how they're shown, I guess, which is what Stefan was talking about before. For instance, content type, it's a dropdown, right? It's a dropdown with fenced options. I can only click these 5. Here, page name, it's obviously freeform, so I can make it whatever I want. So we're going to call this Gatsby Contentful demo page. And our URL slug will be demo, what do we got? Demo Contentful. It's super unique and super creative. Meta title, Gatsby Contentful webinar. Doesn't really matter because I'm going to not index this. I'm going to leave that blank for now. SEO index, no. So this is going to throw no index. Social media image, I'm going to skip for now, just to be simple. And all right, so this is the page. Page got no content. Literally, it would be totally blank. It doesn't have a single piece of content on it. What it has is it's got meta information. So next, we're going to add a content section. I'm going to hop back over here to our content model, and we'll look at this. What we're going to have here is the actual section. So what we call self-service page section is this next portion. That next portion has a name. It's got a layout. It's got the alignment of that. It's got the content itself. So again, another nest. It's got other content that we can link to. I'll show you how we build grids. And then an appearance tab. So you can see here that these are short text. These are references. This is because these are the things that we're going to build other content types of and then be able to reuse them easily. So like appearance, it would be a hassle if the background or the text size or all those small things, if we had to make those changes on each page and didn't have a way to go through them easily, it would be a pain in the neck. If we had 200 pages, we'd have 200 different places, let's say, to change out like a hex color or change out a font type. Because of the way that Contentful is built and because of the data-driven architecture, you can actually just make those all references, which we'll go through here. So name, the naming convention, I'm gonna do webinar Contentful. That's gonna be the name that I use for all of these. And then I just use carrot systems to kind of keep myself organized. So webinar Contentful, we'll call hero. And again, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna rebuild this super simple page. It's got this copyright here, buttons, it's got a grid here. I can make this super simple with a thing, so I figured it would be a good way to go about. Sorry, let's go back here. All right, we're building our webinar or our hero. Here are our layouts. This is how our content is gonna change looks. So we don't have to have a developer come in and like, hey, I want it to look like this, a marketer, I can't make a change. You have kind of this layout structure where you can come down, they're predefined, they are coded up front, but once they're developed, we never have to kind of go back. So here we'll go to 2-column hero. Alignment, we're gonna pick left. We're gonna skip real quick content and grid, and we're gonna talk quickly about the appearance. The appearance is how, so layout deals with kind of the structure. Appearance is kind of the actual styling, right? So you can think about like font, color, background color, padding, all of those things could be dealt here. So we're gonna go with appearance here. Again, this is a content model itself. So if we went back and we looked at appearance, this has its own content model that we structure. So it's got a name, background images, bottom margin, a theme, and their fence. So just quickly, these themes are pre-made. That means that text color, the background color, kind of it can be controlled in a tight design system, and marketers can still feel really flexible. They can feel empowered, right? I have 10 different whatever themes to pick from, but my developer also doesn't feel like I can just go like wild west on anything and make whatever I want. They're kind of predetermined themes and predetermined design systems that they have. So we'll go here, we'll pick just Gatsby. That's going to give us, let's pick something else. Let's pick Magenta. Contentful name.
But I think you're bringing up a very important point when dealing with content management, right? So when you consider kind of systems where it was HTML based WYSIWYG, you had kind of content creators that were doing layouting with CSS and tables and putting some nasty things. This is usually not what you want to do if you have a big content site, because at one point or another things will just break. So what Dan is really showing here is, right, that content creators and developers just came together, kind of agreed on certain things that are needed, but then it's not breaking because it is already pre-made and matching to components. And that's something that is pretty exciting to me all the time.
It's great. And what you're talking about, it's not like magic either. It's work, right? We have meetings weekly with the development team. It's a constant back and forth between the content creators and their needs, and then again the engineering, kind of the design portion on the other side, protecting what the brand looks like, protecting how it looks, but also worrying about developing, right? Just because every marketer is going to ask for like the smallest customized thing, there's certain concessions you have to make where maybe, hey, can we use it like this so we can reuse this block and we're not constantly making these small custom things. It's a constant back and forth, but it's new, right? Previously, it would always kind of be like over the fence. And I think now, just like on the development side with DevOps, people from ops, people from development, people from QA, they're working more hand in hand. You can think about it the same with building like a marketing site or building any of these types of new Jamstack apps where the business owner, the content creators work closely with that engineer.
Yeah, I think the important part is really just that development and content creators start talking rather than working by themselves and hoping for the best. And then it's just your content structures can just be tailored to code. And Danny has a quick question: if and how this approach would work with Tailwind. At the end of it, it's not a matter of CSS architectures or something, because it's really just this: what is the content structures, what should be flexible, and what code should be rendered. So this approach that Dan is showing here works with any CSS thing that you have out there.
Exactly. And actually, I'll try to hurry up here so we can open some code and you can see.
Yeah, we're running late already.
Sorry. All right. So we now have the harness. We have basically everything but the piece of content that we want to show. So this is, I'll just copy this quick. We'll go here. Content. This is the last piece. New content, self-service page content. This is the actual words that show up. So now we have the layout. We have the background, we have kind of that wrapper around it. Now we're going to talk about the content itself. So Contentful webinar, again, I just use this system to stay organized within everything because it's all very open database. So content here, primary text, I copied and pasted that from before. So the primary text is going to be that main header. It's going to be that H1. We also have eyebrows, like a small text here. So that would be secondary text. Because we don't have it, we're just going to leave that blank, and description goes under that. So we'll take that description, we'll put it right under. The other thing that's added on Hero are these other sections. So we have the ability to add CTAs. We have the ability to add a small little icon above it. For this particular one, an image isn't going to work. We don't bring images into that Hero. If we change the layout, it would though. So here we're going to publish this. And we're also going to add one button. So again, a nested thing. This is great because buttons are often reused across your website. I'm just going to click like a sample and show you that you can add existing entries. So here we'll go through like cloud. And yeah, we'll just do this one. I have no idea what it's going to say, but it's cloud link. It's something that, again, it's really nice Contentful. You can reuse things. I didn't have to make that. I now have that. So we're going to publish these changes. We're going to go back here. We're going to publish all of these changes. The one thing I didn't publish yet is the page itself. So this page still isn't published. It's still not there. What we're going to do is we're going to open up a preview. And that's not good, my bad. I broke that myself. Let's see.
I think the code is missing a check, isn't? Oh no. Okay.
There we go. And it was my fault actually because I asked the team to take something off. All right. So you can see there, it is already built. So the same thing. We have it side by side. We have the content here. The last piece here is actually that button. So the button should come through and build. Yeah, let's just make sure everything's published. All right. So we're going to go back here. I am going to publish this. Oh, no, I did publish it. Sorry. Okay, so now we have a hero right here that's showing through. The next thing I'm just going to really show is a different layout, same type of thing. I'm going to go through pretty quickly. Are these sections right here? So if I half and half this, you'll see I have a very similar like building experience for this. It makes it super easy. So our next section, we have the hero section. Now I want this. We're going to self-serve, build a new page. All right, well, Contentful webinar. We'll call it triple grid layout. We call this feature grid. Again, you can make these semantic to actually be a little bit more decipherable, honestly. But we have feature grid here, or actually, sorry, feature items. It's going to make this layout. So now feature items, it's going to put whatever content you have in this column. So it's going to have 3 columns here and continue to make. If you have 5 things, it's going to make 3 columns, then 2. It'll center that bottom. If you have 6, it'll just center the 6 things. So here, appearance, we're going to add existing content before. So again, we don't have to remake that every single time. Contentful webinar, we'll use that. And now what we'll do is we'll add each piece of content. So what I do is I copy this real quick. Boom. I call it, let's call it feature 1. And then I'm just going to copy and quickly all this stuff over here. So same thing, primary text, it's that big bold thing. Description, it's that paragraph underneath it. So publish that. We'll just add these 3 pieces of content in here. And then we'll be good. We'll publish that. We'll see what it looks like. And then I'll show you kind of the code. All right, we'll do those 2. We'll see what that looks like. Again, publishing all this should be taking incredibly quick to go through this because we're just doing incremental builds. Let's check out what we got over here. All right, so like I said before, because of that preview, that button came up. Probably happened while we're looking. Now we have the same thing. We can open the preview. We should see a little build icon, but again, I asked the team to shut that off. The polishing screen, if you go through this, you will all see. I shut this off on my own thing, which is my fault. Let's look at it in production because that's how fast it is. All right, Gatsby JS. All right, let's see. Let's see where our build is. All right. Again, my fault for doing this live. Let's see. All right, sweet, should be done now. 54, yeah, great. All right, perfect, sweet. So now we have our 2 blocks here. Coming in, I must have just literally missed that. 25 seconds to 0.5. Again, this is full content changes that are going through that incremental build pattern. You can see the difference between all of our Contentful changes that go through. Let's see if we have an actual code build. Yeah, here we go. This one failed, but 2 minutes. So like, again, those are like those cold builds we talk about. These are just those content builds that take super quick, feels very natural. All right, so that was basically the front end side. It looks like this. Again, you can build all different types of content with these different layouts. You'll see here we have like 12, I think. We have contact forms, we have banners, cards. All these things are controlled by layouts. Now let's show you kind of how they're pulled in to our website real quick, and then we'll answer questions because I know we're late. Actually, let's do this. All right, so self-service landing page. We have this index, we have this template. It is the foundation for all of our React components. You can see here, all of those layouts we're pulling in to this actual page itself. We're pulling in anything that can possibly be made with our Lego bricks, and we're all kind of pre-rendering it here. You can see here in our GraphQL. So these are all the different layouts, all the different items. It's a little like thick, again, because this is the actual template that pulls out all the different content and allows us to build kind of really complex things and not just a single piece of content. So you have these, this index page here. On top of that are the components themselves. So if you look on over, and I'm sorry that this is so big because it's our full site, features, components, here we go. We have these components here that we pull in. You'll see hero, two column hero is what we did today, right? That's the thing that we changed out with GraphQL. All of it is right here. We have the heading with the eyebrow before we were talking about, the title here. It's got heading, H1, CSS. This is where your Tailwind would go, right? If you had Tailwind system, you put this all right here in your components, and then it just kind of gets nested up. So the developer and the content creator, while they don't really ever have to use each other's systems, their worlds are all now really thinking alike. They can see these commonalities, and you can start building more dynamic websites again with the CMS, whereas before you used to have either two things. You could have a developer code your own custom system, or you could have your marketer drag and drop and build like this really kind of blocky website. So this is right in between. All right, I'm sure we
can
can
you hold there for a second? That answers one question. So Katja had one question. How do you prevent things from breaking when things are not in a content model or an entry, especially in preview mode? And I think what you see there pretty clearly is in line 91 or in line 102. Well, you have to put some safety checks depending on how you connect your content with the layout. So your code really has to do a check. Hey, did the content creator wanted to show a hero or not? Did the content creator wants to show that or not? So when
a lot of nulls, a lot of protection for sure. Like fencing here is so important because like you won't fail. The build will just fail, right? You're not going to make your website look crappy or anything. It's not going to get pushed to production, but it is really important to get this down to a kind of a science of, hey, as a marketer, I don't want to get in my own way. Like if I break stuff and the build breaks because of code, I just don't understand it. So you do have to do a lot of that fencing.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
All right, let's go through some questions real quick. We'll run over a little bit, if that's okay with you.
I have all the time in the world. Should I moderate or do you want to moderate?
Awesome. Well, I'll read them out, I guess. If you have any special ones, call it out.
Go for it.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess the first one is always nice. Do we need to pay extra charges for Compose or any other tools that we installed in Contentful?
You have to, so Compose is part, so as an explanation, so app.contentful.com is the interface that we just were playing with. This is where usually the content modeling and content creation is completely fine for most of the things that we want to do. Compose is another UI, another app that we offer. You have to, and we're charging for that. It is an application to edit and create data for the web use case with a little bit more opinionated UI, because Contentful in general, as you have seen, it is pretty unopinionated. You can connect whatever with whatever with whatever. So Compose is a little bit more web focused, and it is part of our enterprise plans, and on the team plan, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, and what we had before was just app.contentful. So it's not Compose. So what we showed you here today in that demo is available.
It's a free offering.
Exactly, free offering out of the box. You can get that going quickly.
Yep.
All right, so does Gatsby Cloud work with Azure repos? Currently today, we don't support Azure repos. You can mirror any of your Azure repo into like a GitHub repo. We have a lot of actual customers that do that. It's pretty easy. There's an extension out there that allows it to pretty quickly happen, but that can allow us to build your website. Certainly Uncanny, Gatsby.js or what is it? Uncanny.gatsby.js com, you can submit your suggestions there. And you can definitely ask for Azure repos and vote on that. The other thing is, can you elaborate on how the static and dynamic Gatsby web app will work? I actually don't have an example here of an SSR, but we did introduce server-side rendering with Gatsby 4. So you can use server prop and ask for that data at runtime. It's literally just like a function that you ask for, and you've put it around your code block here to not be static. You can have pages that are static. You can have pages that do update on the fly. There's also something really cool in between called deferred static generation, which is something we launched with Gatsby 4 as well, that for sites that have really long builds, let's say you have 20,000 pages, and each time you make a change from a code perspective, let's say, that whole website has to get rebuilt, right? All the 20,000 pages, that's what takes so long. With deferred static generation, you can tell us which pages to build as critical up front and which pages to not really worry about until someone requests them. So if you have 100 pages that are super important and you have 19,000 blogs from 5 years ago, you can defer those 19,000 blogs. Your build will take just as long as the 100 pages would take. And then once you're in production, a user requests one of those 5-year-old blogs, it would build just like an SSR page. So it'll take 1 to 2 seconds to load. It'll be like the normal internet that you probably experienced before Gatsby. It'll be touch slower for that one user, but once that one user uses it, it'll be put up on the cloud and act totally static. So after that one user requests it, it's a total static asset and everything is just as fast. All right, another question around the preview stuff. So does Gatsby Cloud Preview Service now use the Sync API? I know originally it was the Preview API and heard more recently it was using incremental builds. So actually, we're going through a change on the preview side. So we're doing a lot more with the Sync API, but right now we have Preview API using it. It does use incremental builds though. So previously we were using kind of a dev server build to host those previews. It was really fraught. We didn't make the dev server obviously made for production. So a lot of builds would not work. It was kind of unreliable on the totality. What we did was we use incremental builds now for the previews. So things might not take instant, where before it took 1 second, might take 5 seconds, but it's a production grade build in that preview. So the reliability is through the roof. You in the 90%, so you shouldn't expect anything to really ever fail if there's no reason for it. Because again, that is a production grade incremental build that's happening for previews. All right. Can you please also walk through the localization architecture, Gatsby side? I think this, I don't have an example here of localization. Stefan, do you want to talk a little bit about on your side with content modeling and localization, what Contentful allows you to do? And then I can kind of talk on the Gatsby side.
So at Contentful, you can define your content model. So we allow localization. Every content model has a default locale, first of all, and then you can configure the content model for certain fields to be translatable. So for example, what Dan showed in the content model, there was, for example, always a title field on top, which was just for navigating all the content that is in Contentful. Usually you don't want to translate that, right? Because it's not hitting any front ends. But what you can do then is when you build up your content structures, you can say, okay, these parts should be translatable in these kind of languages. And then you can fetch the data with Gatsby plugin source, depending on your needs. So it's really up to you. Another example, for example, is if you have a hero image, probably you have the same hero image in English, French, maybe not, maybe you do. But if let's say you do want to have the same image, then you don't want to localize that either. So it's really up to you to define, hey, these kind of things should be localized or not, and that is a content model configuration.
Perfect. And then on our side, again, you can kind of either use the Contentful, like you can use all those APIs again to build like components, each for your localized section, or you can kind of build like a structure with pages where it's like /en, /fr in that manner, or go like a subdomain route, and you can still kind of source that all from one spot.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. There are a couple questions. There's like kind of more questions than I have actual time for, so I feel bad. I'm going to cut this now, and then I'm going to answer everything on Twitter and email. So first of all, Stefan, thank you so much for coming
Great
and joining
demo,
us
Dan.
today. Yeah,
Made
I
it.
hope that everyone really can see the power here of like what Contentful can do, not only on the development side, but for a marketer, we feel really empowered on our side to like go build a nice, beautiful website with a structure that is empowering, yet still looks like my designer doesn't kill me all the time and he can put in his touches. So it's fantastic marriage, Gatsby and Contentful. The resources that were thrown out before, you want to just put yours, Contentful/developers, I believe, right?
Correct.
All right, awesome. And then gatsbyjs.com/docs, probably the best part or best place for you all to start out. Check out the starters, get going with Contentful today. All right, everyone, thank you. And I appreciate you joining us today.
Great. Have a great day, everyone.